Okay, then there are six criteria of healthy personality according to Albert. So the first indication that someone has a mature, healthy personality is that those people could have expand their sense of self to people and activities beyond themselves. So it means that people who has healthy personality would have a good orientation towards other people. So they would be more sensitive to others people need, and they are more willing to fulfill others' need rather than their own needs. And the second criteria is mature adults often relate warmly to other people and show more intimacy, compassion, and tolerance when they relate to other people, which means that people who have a healthy personality don't experience any difficulties in having warm and compassionate relationship with other people. And then the third criteria is that people who has healthy personality would have higher degree of self-acceptance so that they would be easier to achieve emotional security, so they would more comfortable being the true self of themselves, being the true uh, of uh, they are. And uh, the next criteria, the fourth uh, criteria of healthy personality is have a realistic perception of their own life, which means that they could objectively assess their own uh, strengths and weaknesses, and they could develop personal skills, and they could make uh, make a commitment to one particular type of work, which means that people who has healthy personality would dedicate themselves to be more competent in terms of work, so they didn't get confused of pursuing long-term career or commitment to one particular field. And the next criteria is that mature adults often have sense of humor, and they could have self objectification, which means uh, that they would be able to reflect on their own self, and it could have a healthy self criticism, and it could develop insight how to be a better version of themselves. And the last criteria of having a healthy personality is that those people could have a unifying philosophy of life, which means they would adapt to one specific particular philosophy of life. It doesn't necessarily has to be religious values. It could be one type particular value that they would strongly believe, and they have long-term goals in their future life. Um, Allport also explaining the aspects of human personality as distinguished two types of behavior that often manifests or reflects the traits of our personality. So the first types of behavior that often relates to our trait is the expressive one, which means it's more autonomous, more spontaneous, and it reflects the very basic aspects of our personality. And it's because it happens as a response to a simpler stimuli, and it would also reflects the very basic traits of our personality, and it's very different from the coping behavior. Yeah, the that would explain later. So expressive behavior is quite difficult to change, and it has no specific purpose. It's just a response towards stimuli and often displayed without our awareness. It just happens spontaneously. And this kind of one example of an expressive behavior. For example, if someone insults you in public area, then your response to that insult would be an expressive behavior, whether you choose to give her or his an insult as revenge or you choose to not respond that insults. So maybe like punch uh, his or her face, that would be a reflection of your trait. So that's the expressive behavior. And then the next is that uh, uh, the next type of behavior that also reflects our trait is that the coping behavior. So unlike the expressive behavior that is tends to be more spontaneous, more automatic, more autonomous, the coping behavior is more carefully planned and it has specific purposes. Uh, so you strategically perform this behavior in order to gain specific goals that you want to achieve. This is something that you concisely planned and you carry it out according to this plan, and it's determined by the need of uh, the situation, and it is directed to bring about change in your behavior. So this type of behavior is strategically aimed to obtain change in the behavior. So the next is that personality assessment to evaluate or assess one's personality so that it could be more understandable. Allport specifically mentioned that our human personality is very complex, so that evaluating this complex personality, we have to employ of various types of techniques. So it's impossible to only rely on just one technique to understand and evaluate this complexity. And Allport even listed 11 methods that ranging from objective tasks to projective tasks. So there is a stark differences between projective and objective tasks. In projective tasks, psychologists often use ambiguous stimuli, so they don't use a very specific and clear stimuli, so that people could interpret one exact stimuli with various interpretation. And this method is very popular in clinical psychology, but often the validity and reliability such tests would be extremely questionable. And even using those 11 methods at the same time would be very impractical, so that no one actually used many methods at the same time to measure personality. In the current times research, psychologists often use self-reports to measure, uh, to assess and evaluate one's personality. So it's much simpler and much more robust nowadays. And even though Alport listed lots of methods to evaluate one's personality, he specifically relied on one particular method that he truly believed that it could convey human personality accurately. And he mentioned that technique as the personal document techniques. Yeah. So this is a technique that analyze one's diary, yeah, personal document techniques. Uh, we analyze one's diary, autobiographies, letters that one sent you and add to their friends, literary composition, or even written or spoken records of this person, which often cause a lot of problems as well. Because even though you could sense the impression of this personality, often your interpretation will then be exactly same as other people interpretations. So through these methods, uh, the depiction of one's personality is truly depend on the interpretations of the person who analyze those records. So that sometimes this technique is not commonly used in psychology because of its higher degree of unreliability, because different people who analyze the same records will come with completely different reasons. So it would be very uh, problematic. So this is the end of our session. So thank you very much for taking your time to watch this video. I hope that you find this video helpful. Have a very nice day and thank you.